So would you distinguish between organizations that looking for financial participation from those that don't in offering their teachings?
No, because that is not what spirituality is about. Spirituality is an ongoing process. See, it's not lessened because of materiality, or it's not sort of let's say intensified because it's spirituality. See, no, it just is. You have to enter what that isness is to know for yourself where you fit in the scheme of things. So it's not about who's making money, who's not making money. All of these things are trivial issues that have to do with survival in the mundane. It's got nothing to do with the spiritual. Okay? What I experienced around the Eckankar period had nothing to do with the mundane. That was a shock, but not really a shock for me. Okay? Had nothing to do with this plane at all. Okay? And that's like spiritualism. It has very little to do with this plane. What this plane is a plane of effects, not the plane of causes. So there's another plane of causes that we have to see and understand from that level. So that's where a composer should be at, the plane of causes, not the plane of effects. They're going around listening to everybody's effects and then mishmashing and putting together some kind of product and say, oh, this is composition. Okay? For those who buy that, go ahead.
Within Eckankar, was there any attempt to, let's say, judge people's out-of-the-body experiences, or? Probably,
because it meant something. It meant something. Even in native experiences. You talk about native tribes, you come into the circle and you express yourself. You say what you experience. And everybody can make heads or tails of that because it's a common experience. The spiritual is common experience, ladies and gentlemen. Whoever hears this. The spiritual is the most common experience of all. Everything else is political BS, self-importance, racial nonsense, sexist nonsense. It's nonsense. There's no heart in it. No heart in it. Musical nonsense. No heart in it. Where's the heart in the music? That's the first question. Where's the heart in the religion? That's the first question. Where's the heart in the politics? That's the first question. Where's the bigotry dominate? That's all of these are the first questions. See, the bigotry is darkness. It means you haven't evolved yet. Too closed-minded. Closed to perspective. Too skin deep. You gotta go deeper than that. Beyond skin deep. Yeah. The spiritual is deep. See? Penetrated to the heart of the matter, that's spiritual. That's also what genius is about, by the way. Yeah. And that's what most universal geniuses have in common. They understand the heart of the matter. Yeah. That's their main focus.
Did Eckankar have, let's say, its own language for talking about out-of-the-body experiences?
I think the language was for the most part inherited from the Hindus. Yeah, Hindu roots, Sanskrit roots. Now, of course, people create their own language and fashion their language according to the times and for their own purposes, but perfectly in accord with one's experience. And you have to create words, say, depending on your experience. Yeah. So all of it's inclusive. Ultimately, everyone has to be the master of their particular life. But most settle for being slaves, unaware that they are slaves.
Were, let's say, any or some of the out-of-body experiences outside of the realm of Eckankar, and
all of it's outside of the realm of Eckankar, depending on what you call Eckankar. Eckankar means the body of oneness. So it's a very high concept. Right? You find that everywhere. Like realization, transcendent oneness. All of these are very, very elevated concepts, universal concepts, universal brotherhood, new world order, with disorder. Yeah.
Would let's say in Eckankar the master Darwin or Paul Twitchell set the tone for other people's experiences?
No doubt. That's what the master's for, to set the tone and correct the tone if need be. Not to dominate anybody, not to control anybody. That's against the law of spirit to control someone, unless they're your kids. You can direct, you can lead to a certain degree. Those who will be led. You don't force yourself on anybody as leader, and you don't force yourself to follow anybody. Yeah. Yeah.
Did a change in leadership mean that some people left and some new people came in?
Well, that's usually the case everywhere throughout the world. That's not a particular cult's, as you might say, privilege. That happens in every household. Household leader changes, household changes. Some people stay, some people can't stay. And it's not good or bad, it just depends on the resonance you have with the leader.
Would you say that the organization changed beyond its reason for existence with a change in leader? In other words, should a new leader mean a new organization?
Well, sometimes the doctrine dominates what it is. Sometimes the leader dominates what it is. Yeah. So those of us who are acutely aware of world politics understand how all these things work, how kingdoms work, and how they should work.
Are we as beings in need of new organizations to spread teachings or develop spiritual awareness, or will the old ones?
Always. Right. And I think that's one of the perhaps ideals of being an American, the United States of America and the foundation, is ideas, respecting views, all views. And of course, we see these days, relative to insanity, you respect all views up to a point. Keep that view out of the country. And that's, I think, keep that view out of this house. Everyone has a right to their own peace of mind.
Would you say that organizations are living and dying as well?
Of course, obviously. Time rules everything. Everything appears to disappear at some point, let's say. Some things stay longer than others. But when the earth changes, everything changes. If it's an extinction level event, then everything changes. Our surface changes.
Are we living with dying or dead organizations determining the fate of the earth?
You would know that better than anybody else. Why? Why would you know that?
I would know for myself. It seems to be true.
No, so that what it seems to be true is true for you.
To what extent was Eckankar open to your influence as someone outside it who came in?
Some of the people were extremely open. I mean, I was surprised. Coming in from the outside, it wasn't about where you came from, it was what is your experience? Right. And when I was interacting with these people, when I was drawn into this, I was curious about it. I'm a spiritualist to the core. I mean, spirit first, culture later, secondary. It was really interesting how certain questions would come up out of nowhere. I'd say, have you experienced it? I'd say, yes, I have that experience. And I'd say, would you go further? Would you elaborate on that? Because it's really about experience, not about belief. Common experience, spiritual experience. And then some people would say, and I mentioned this in the Bible, they said, well, you're much more advanced than we are. You might be a leader here. And frankly, boom, no ego. Oh, we might have a new leader here. Now, of course, I didn't feel I was anybody, new leader or anything. But I think the openness was well appreciated. It wasn't fear-based, it wasn't politics. No. Who has the experience? Experience leads. Realization leads, as it should. And if it's real realization, it's going to lead no matter what anybody says, no matter what politics are, let's say, at risk. In any tradition, when the realization happens, all bets are off. If it's radical realization, it's gone. Yeah. The realized being is gone already. Try to catch it. Try to find it.
Is the realized being beyond organizations?
One could say that, but the realized beings also create organizations. Depends on what's needed. Depends on where they are in the channeling for the Earth's purpose and then for the purpose of humanity. See, it's not just one thing. For the purpose of the solar system. That's a purpose never really described or talked about often or made reference to. What does the solar system need? It is a solar system. It's an organism. It has a voice in what happens here. Just because we're so materialized, you can't hear its voice, we don't see its voice, we don't perceive its voice, so we don't cognize its voice. It doesn't mean its voice isn't like roaring loudly. No, it has a voice. It is the voice, in fact.
Would you see the circle around you as a no organization?
Just friends. People who are meeting on the wind of life and who have the, I guess you might say, the ability or the luxury to spend time together in a configuration that's completely friendly and wide open. No contracts. Can be that way. The way of spirit is without contract, without lease, so without a deal.
Do you see a need for more free masters, free of organizations?
That speaks for itself. This is purgatory. So you can get a little bit of freedom out here. That's to your advantage. You're lucky to get it out here because you see a lot of people. This is a meat factory out here. Not a very good place to be. If you're on a meat factory assembly line or conveyor belt, right, to the chopping block, it's rough going here. There's no guarantees after that. Who you are, where you're going. Yeah. That's when this becomes a very horrible scene, when you're talking about spiritualism and understanding the way the spirits, what are we doing to the human bodies, what are we doing to the human spirits that are subject to all this horror? Good question. We have to account for it ourselves. Yeah. We are creators, we're co-creators in this sort of conspiracy called life. Living into death, see? Dying into life. Living to die only. Not living to live, but living to die.
Is it reasonable to think of organizations as potentially enlightened?
Yeah, it's reasonable, even more reasonable to think of enlightenment as being common sense. That's even more reasonable. Maybe it's radical, but it's more reasonable. What is enlightenment. And what isn't is also enlightenment. So you in other words, the opportunity to awaken is to awaken what is already here. See, always here, but already gone. It's a paradox. It's the always here, who and which is always already gone. See, it's spiritual. It's the already gone is spiritual in nature. Supremely subtle, the sublimely subtle. It's already gone. It's all pervasive, so you have to be at its vibratory rate to appreciate it for what it is, the force it is, the light it is, and the power it is, the sound it is, the love it is.
Are spiritual seekers outside of organizations more free than those within them? Are spiritual seekers outside of organizations more free than those within?
It's hard to say. What is freedom then? Because you're outside of a situation, you're free. You're always in a situation when you're a seeker. You're in the worst situation. You're seeking. Right? By the very nature of the language you're seeking, that means you're continually dividing yourself, fragmenting, separating yourself. So, a rather interesting dilemma to be in.
So can one find freedom within an organization?
You can't find freedom. I just answered that question. You can't find it because you never lost it. You got to give that up. You got to give that prop up or that crutch up. It's never gone anywhere. It's here.
Then can one be freedom within an organization?
Well, if you can be freedom, whatever freedom is, at that point, yeah, because you can be that anywhere. You are the organization. So you are the organization, you are the freedom-seeking freedom in the organization.
Does the being in an organization put himself or the organization first?
Second?
Should an individual in an organization put himself or the organization first?
What would you do if you...
If you're a company man, you might sacrifice yourself for the company. You know this.
Well, that goes without saying. You're making references to what is human nature for the individual. Yeah, it's all of that. Right, it's all of it. It's all of it, Jim.